Hello there. I hope you're relaxed. It's okay, it's okay. This is a safe space. We're all friends here. You wanna look at my big sword? Yeah, have a look. It's pretty big, isn't it? So, you know...
I can't do this! We have a new best great sword and it hit things hard like... Hello, my fellow hunters, or more specifically, my fellow great sworders. Fatalis Day is a glorious day, aside from all the, screaming and blood and burning and bodies and general death, despair and destruction. But apart from all of that, it is a glorious day, for Fatalis' great sword is absolutely bloody ludicrous, but his armor even more so, and then you combine them together, and you have something real special. So, once more we're feeling for likely the final time in Iceborne. Here is the newest, bestest Great Sword Build. So arrive on the hunt, be like, is that a Fatalis there? Yep, that's a Fatalis. Then get into battle and start a farming, because you're gonna need, 4 pieces of his armor at an absolute minimum. But before we get to the armor itself, let's actually talk the weapons, Firstly, as I said, the ludicrous roar on it. This thing has a roar of 340. And that is with purple sharpness to boot. The previous best greatsword, to put it in perspective, is Raging Bracky with just 300 and purple sharpness. That is 40 less. Now, Safi Jiva with maximum attack is 320, but that leaves you with only white sharpness. So no matter how you slice it, and you are going to be doing a lot of slicing with this, it is just superior. Though you might be like, well, it's got minus 30% affinity, that's pretty awful. And yes, it is pretty awful, but without really going out of our way to counteract it, we still end up at a nice, clean 95% affinity, which is fantastic, especially as we're not using Master's Touch anymore, but true razor sharp. So, yeah, this is quite the meaty beating stick, and we are going to have a lot of fun. So, we are going to be using the dragon feet, the dragon barbs, the dragon claws, and the dragon hide. Essentially, if it's below the neck, it's covered in Fatalis skin. With the only thing of note when it comes to the Fatalis armor is that the waist needs to be the alpha. This has an extra weakness exploit and 1 more crit eye, and it downgrades 2 4 slots to 2 3 slots. But that's okay, because this set needs 2 handicraft, and that nicely takes those 3 slots. The TLDR is the net gain of this little switch from beta back to alpha is that we don't have to use the single 1 slot on the helmet for a single crit eye to make it up to 7, which means we can replace it with something else. It's tiny, but it is slightly better. And the helmet is going to be the Frostfang helmet. Now, normally, when we have a 4 set, the 1 piece left over ideally should be a piece that gives you 2 or more ranks in a skill that there isn't a decoration that gives 2 ranks in that skill. So, for example, an armor piece that gives +2 agitator is worth less than an armor piece that gives 2 focus, because there's a double agi decoration but not a double focus. So getting 2 ranks of focus needs 2 4 slots, but 2 ranks of agitator needs 1. So we have to plan the best decoration economy we can. However, while that might imply that Damascus Chest seems to be the one to use with its fairly good slots and 2 focus, we want to use the Frostfang helmet because of punishing draw. Yes, we're not using crit draw here, but your general greatsword gameplay involves a lot of sheathing, running around, running back up to the monster, and draw attacking. And we want that draw attack to gain a little bump of 5 raw, but mainly we want it to gain that stun, because while solo hunting, you will get a stun, or maybe even 2 if you really go for it, and that extra damage from that stun downtime is more than worth any other combination. Now in multiplayer, maybe you won't get a stun off. If anyone else is using anything KO, you'll at least contribute, but even switching from Frostfang to something like Damascus Chest doesn't really do much for the build to begin with, so this just really neatly works. Now, when it comes to the decorations, slotting them in, as you can see, there's a lot to be slotted in. I will admit that it kind of needs a fairly, let's say, impressive collection.
Holy shit!
Yeah, you might be farming for a little while. But first, let's talk the affinity, because that's something that we need to solve, of course. 30% minus means we need to gain 130%, ideally, affinity. So how do we have that going on? Well, affinity augment, 10%. Agitator, level 7, that takes us to 30%. Critical Eye, level 7, that takes us to 70%. Weakness Exploit, level 3, that takes us to 120%. And then Attack, level 4, takes us to 125%, or 95% Affinity, which is fantastic. As for the final augment, you can either use Defense to be just that little bit more tanky, or put it in Element for just that tiniest more dragon on each hit. Then we have the sharpness. I would say issue, but it's not really. The weapon as a baseline comes with 10 hits of purple, though with True Razor Sharp that is more like 30. The average rate it will actually trigger should give you about 30 hits, and while that's okay for a greatsword, it's not great, and ideally we just don't want to have to sharpen. So we have Handicraft slotted in here, which gives us an average of 90 hits before we need to sharpen, and that is beyond comfortable. The rest then is kind of what you just might expect. We have our level 3 focus, which we need. We have maximum attack. Our critical boost is there. The only really decision you have to make is this. Do you want level 3 peak performance, or do you want level 3 coalescence? Whichever skill you find most fun or useful or just prefer is the one you want to choose. Personally, I kind of like Coalescence because I hate peak performance as activated constantly popping up on my screen, though I will say that this set is very good at maintaining peak performance if that's your poison. And the reason for that is the second choice you have to make. You have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 core skills here that come with the choice of protection, medicine, maintenance, physique, or evasion. So essentially, you just need to allocate them. I've gone for 5 Divine Blessing because after Vitality, that is the best defensive skill in the game, and it is ludicrous how often that saves your life. Following that, Recovery Up for 30% more healing on top of making your potions go that much further when monsters are hitting you like a truck. It also means that your health augment, coupled with the ludicrous damage this does, is giving you huge top-ups, and basically outside of the very top ends of the game, you essentially never have to do anything other than beat on the monster. You could go for a bit more evade window if that's your liking, you could go for some tool specialist for more of that sweet mantle uptime. Really, it's very customizable by the very nature of the set, but this is essentially the template. We get to the point where we're kind of out of attack skills to pour into the build. Though that said, in a perfect world, we'd have both peak performance and coalescence, so I envy all of you other raw weapon users that don't need focus and can do just that. Or at least I would be if Greatsword couldn't do it as well. See, you can still use the Raging Brachy with this same set of armor, and because you have less affinity to make up because of the less minus, you don't need the 3 ranks of Critical Eye, you just need level 4, and then because of this you get 2 ranks of Coalescence, and this one only needs an attack augment, not an affinity augment, which means, assuming coalescence is always up, which it isn't, but assuming it is, that gives you a raw with light break blade at 332, which is only 8 less than the Fatalis option, and has 100% affinity to boot, which is the extra 5%, so that gets it even closer. The downside is, though, there is slightly less sharpness going on here, 60 hits instead of 90, but the Fatalis option does just slightly edge this out, and let's be honest, you want to be using the Fatalis Great Sword because it's awesome. The bottom line is, though, things are looking good for me big sword, me hit thing hard. Alright then, guys, like if you enjoyed this, subscribe for more, and we will see you soon. Yes, I said we. There's more than one of me. I'm right behind you, right now. Hello. A good boy. Like if you enjoyed this, subscribe for more. Good boy.
Rage Gaming with the video flow.
But that's all that's really relevant at the mo, but I'm still gonna leave this up so you patrons know that I love you even though the outro's no longer that kind of relevant. But the new one's being worked on and it's gonna be a truly badass song, and don't worry, I won't be doing any rapping on it. I'm gonna go now. This was shit.